Hey everybody, it's Kennedy Hawk from the MCM team. This week on Tactical Thursday, we're going to go over one of the new heroes in Mad Titan's Shadow, Adam Warlock, in an Adam Warlock hero primer. So we're going to go over all the cards in Adam Warlock's kit, some strategies I've used for deck building with him because he offers a really unique take on deck building, and then we're going to wrap up with 5 tips to improve your deck building and gameplay with Adam Warlock. Need more coffee this morning, BRB. All right, let's begin. I'm clicking buttons and nothing's happening. There we go. Let's look at Adam Warlock's identity. So he's got 3 recover, a hand size of 6, hit points of 11, and a giant wall of text in his box. The first ability, Avatar of Life, isn't going to matter after you're done deck building, or is it? We'll see. So Avatar of Life. During deck building, your deck must include an equal number of cards from all 4 aspects. You cannot include more than 1 copy of any non-Adam Warlock card. So that means if you're going to include 6 leadership cards, you have to include 6 of everything else. So if you think about the 15 cards Adam Warlock comes with, you've got 25 to 35 other cards to work with. You want to divide that by 4. There's a certain range in the number of cards you could have. So if you had 5 of each aspect card, that would be 20 cards plus 5 basic. If you have 6, that's 24. Wow, I should have done this math ahead of time. 7 would be 28, 8 would be 32, and that's about where you're capped off because you can't include more than 35 cards on top of the 15. So you can have about 8 cards per aspect if you really want to go about 50. But that's really interesting because now you get access to all 4 aspects, but you have this drawback of, well, I can't include 3 copies of 4 Justice. So how do I make sure I can consistently remove threat? And we'll talk about that today. You also have an action that's actually really good that not a lot of people talk about. Discard a card from your hand, remove a status card from Adam Warlock. That's great. Being stunned and confused stinks. And a lot of times you're looking to include cheap attacks and cheap thwarts so that you can remove that stunned or confused, or you waste your exhaustion ability to do it. Well, here you can just pitch any card. Whatever the worst card is in your hand, throw it away and get rid of that status. I love it. It's pretty amazing. All right, let's look at Adam's hero side. 1 thwart, 1 attack, boo. 2 defense, okay. Hand size of 5, 11 hit points, and another giant wall of text. Guardian and Mystic traded, so that's cool. And he has the ability Battle Mage. Action, discard 1 card from your hand, limit once per phase. If that card is Aggression, deal 2 damage to an enemy. Justice, or remove 2 threat from a scheme. Protection, heal 1 damage from an ally. Or Leadership, give your hero +1 thwart, +1 attack, +1 defense this round. That's pretty sweet. So all those abilities are good. The least exciting one is Protection, but that's because you're forced to use it with allies. All of them are amazing, right? If you have an ally with 3 attack on it, you can turn that 1 card into 3 damage. This is really, really good. The least exciting one actually is probably Leadership, and that's like a morale boost, which normally costs 2 cards, and it only costs you 1, and it can be any blue card. So I'm pretty happy with this ability. I think it's pretty amazing, and you're going to see that his kit really revolves around using this Battle Mage ability. One future projection I have that would be really exciting is a lot of card games eventually waver into these like dual colored cards. Like maybe we'll have in the future a half aggression, half leadership card that counts as both and could be included in either deck. Adam Warlock, when he discards like a double aspected card, could then trigger 2 of these abilities, which would be really, really cool. So I hope they have those someday because I think that they will make Adam Warlock even more fun, but he's already fun as is. So don't worry, you got lots of things coming. All right, let's look at his kit. He's got some really synced events, and what I mean by that is his kit is really tight. Like everything synergizes together so well, except for his signature ally, which is very classic Marvel Champions, like 14 cards that perfectly work together, and then some ally that does an amazing thing that's amazing but doesn't work with anything else. So we've got 3 copies of Karmic Blast, which is a 2-cost event. Hero action attack. Deal 4 damage to an enemy and discard up to 4 cards from the top of your deck. And you get to choose how many cards you discard. So if you're close to decking out and you don't want to yet, you don't have to discard all 4. You deal 1 additional damage to that enemy for each different aspect card discarded this way. So this is really important to note, right? So you can do 2 for 8 damage if you hit all 4 aspects. Let's say you're discarding and you discard a protection event and an aggression event and a justice event, but you know all your leadership cards are in your discard pile. There's no reason to discard a 4th card unless you're trying to accelerate your way through your deck. So it becomes really important to know what's in your discard pile and where all the cards of the different aspects are. I found I like to build him with 4 to 5 aspect cards of each type because I can maintain that amount of knowledge in my brain. If I start thinking about 8 aspect cards, this becomes a little bit less consistent. But if you have 4 to 5, you can kind of know where they are and really take advantage of that up to 4 cards. 3 of these. So, I mean, think about Big Hands for Miss Marvel, right? That's 2 for 4 damage. This is 2 for up to 8 with a slight drawback, 2 for a minimum of 4. It's pretty dang good. All right, we got 2 copies of Cosmic Awareness. This guy must be from space or something, because there's a bunch of the word cosmic. It is a thwart and superpower. Also note Karmic Blast is a superpower, so Deft Focus fans get even more excited. Hero action thwart. Remove 3 threat from a scheme and discard up to 4 cards from the top of your deck. Again, up to 4. Remove 1 additional threat from that scheme for each different card discarded this way. So you could remove 7 threat from a scheme for 2 cost. Nothing in the game is as efficient as that. And there is this added cost of your decking out a little bit faster. But as you can see from his next event, we got 2 copies of Quantum Magic. Choose a card in your discard pile and add it to your hand. This ends up increasing the cost of that card by 1. But at the same time, like, you get to go into your discard pile and grab whatever the best tool is whenever this card is in your hand. It's amazing. People ignore Quantum Magic far too much when it's such a strong card. Anything that lets you recur or look through your discard pile and grab the best thing, it's like taking your discard pile and saying, this is my hand. I can't spend them as resources, but I can pick the best thing every turn. And that's amazing. So discarding these cards doesn't really hurt you, because Quantum Magic can then take those as resources, sort of, and like pick the best resource and put it into your hand. Amazing. You can also use Quantum Magic to filter resources. If you have all Lightning Bolts in your hand and you need Lightning Mental to discard and upgrade, never underestimate the ability to use Quantum Magic to go grab a mental resource and get rid of an attachment on a villain. It can be really fun. Okay, 7 events. That's a lot of events, so he must have some other cool cards coming up. And next we're going to look at Adam Warlock's insane economy. And I mean that it's insane. His events weren't even that expensive, right? They were 2 at most. So he's got his Karmic Staff, which, that's the thing that they like to make that generates a wild resource. Very generic. It's like his Super Soldier Serum, but he's only got 1 of it. So you're like, well, that kind of stinks. He doesn't get 2 serums or 2 God of Thunders. But then he's got this card, Mystic Senses. It's a conditioned superpower. Again, Deft Focus fans. Be deft and focused. Hero response. After you resolve Adam Warlock's Battle Mage ability, draw 1 card. So you discard a card, get some ability, and then draw cards. That makes every card into, like, amazingness, right? Every card just draws you a card. You can only do that once per turn, so you can't just, like, cycle your entire hand. But that means you can take whatever the worst card is for your turn, throw it away to Battle Mage, assuming it's an aspect card, and draw something that's potentially better as a replacement. And you have 2 copies of these, so if you get both Mystic Senses out, every single card in your deck turns into discard me to get an effect and draw 2 cards. That's redonkulous. Like, every card is that good. Every card can be cycled for something better with an effect. Amazing. On top of this, like, amazing card draw and resource generation, we have Warlock's Cape, which is great for action economy. Hero response. After you resolve Adam Warlock's Battle Mage ability, exhaust Warlock's Cape to ready Adam Warlock. This is amazing. So you can defend every turn, knowing you're probably going to Battle Mage and ready yourself and get to use your stats again. Now, his stats aren't that great, and maybe that's why, but you have access to all 4 aspects, so you can bring all those stat boost cards along for the ride. Just, you might choose to. And it's just really, really good, right? You can clear Confused, then ready yourself, or you can just flip down and discard the Confused. You have so many good abilities. It is a bit of a bummer that the way the leadership one works is you won't get that bonus on both activations, because you kind of need to be exhausted to then use the leadership ability to ready yourself and use your stats again. But hear me out. If you use the leadership ability every turn, you can get yourself up to 3 defense. You can exhaust yourself, then ready yourself and have 3 defense again for the next turn, and you get to use that 1 or 2 thwart on that turn. So I still think it works with leadership, but it mainly wants you to defend. So Warlock Cape, as exciting as it is probably the card I use the least in his kit, because the cards in his kit have all been bonkers amazing. All right, and then we got some flex cards. There's no, like, one category they fit into. They're kind of like a protective category, so we've got 2 copies, it says only 1, but there's 2, trust me, of Cosmic Ward. It's a spell with a forced interrupt. That's forced. Do not forget, that is forced. It's not a forced hero interrupt, but when you reveal a treachery card, cancel its when revealed effects and discard it. Then discard Cosmic Ward. So you're going to cancel a card. That's really important to note. Also, remember, you can't cancel cards with peril if we have any cards coming up that have peril on them. So if you can't cancel Peril, you won't end up discarding Cosmic Ward because you won't have completed everything before it to complete the then portion of this sort of cost thing. But Cosmic Ward is really good. It lets you flip down pretty safely. All those times you flip down and you're like, well, if I draw an advance, I'm boned. This kills that advance and lets you flip. It is forced, so you have to remember it, which is a bit of a bummer. It's not quite as good as those other ones, but it's also an upgrade, so you get it out of your hand. You don't have to spend it during the villain phase and stuff like that. We've got Soul World, which is a 1-of support location. Response: after your deck runs out of cards, place 1 soul counter here. Alter Ego action: exhaust Soul World, remove 1 soul counter from it to heal all damage from your identity. So I compare this a lot of the times to Aunt May. I don't think it's necessarily as good as Aunt May because it's very conditional, right? If you need to heal early and you haven't decked out since playing this yet, well, you're kind of stuck using your recover still. Whereas Aunt May, as soon as you get her, like, you're just able to recover with her every time you take damage. But it also can be really, really powerful, right? If you get yourself down to 1 hit point, you could heal for 11. Who cares about getting an extra encounter card then? It also works with Adam's kit because you're burning through your deck so fast and discarding all those cards, you're going to get soul counters on here. So it's definitely a card to play. If you're close to burning down the villain, might be a card to hold off on. It's a card you kind of want to see on that first deck pass. Otherwise, you're getting to the point where you're saying, am I going to deck out 3 times in this game? I'm not sure. Next up is Pip the Troll. This was our spoiler card for Mad Titan Shadow. So it's a 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 health ally with 2 cost and the Mystic trait. Toughness, so he's going to come into play with a tough card. While Pip the Troll is in your hand, he gains Interrupt. When a player is attacked, spend energy mental resources to put Pip the Troll into play under that player's control. So that's pretty gnarly, right? You can, when you draw into this, save someone who's getting hit by a charge or an overkill attack or whatever. At the same time, you throw this onto their board, so it doesn't help you, but they can throw him out there. He can block with tough. He can then thwart the next turn. Well, I guess he'd be exhausted. So in 2 turns, he could thwart, and then he could block again. He's a really strong card. It's also really fun to play this on someone who's at their ally limit, because then they have to discard an ally, or at least that's how we play it at our house. So he's like the ultimate troll, Pip the Troll. But he's just a really fun card, and a wild resource to boot. No big deal. All right, so that's his kit. Obviously, he has really unique deck building. You have access to all 4 aspects, but every card is basically unique like an ally. You can only have 1 copy of it. And this restricts basic cards as well. Sorry, Spiritual Meditation, or whatever that card is called, that draws 2 and then discards 1 for Mystics. You don't get to include 3 of them as Adam Warlock. Trust me, I tried, and it was broken, and then I reread his card and found out I couldn't do that. It leads to a bit of inconsistency, right? Because if you're including a card that combos with another card, it's going to be really hard to draw into those 2 cards together, but it's going to have so much payback when it does that it can still be really fun. So you have to plan for consistency, and there's a lot of things in Adam's kit that make things consistent. Once you get 2 Mystic Senses down, yeah, your hand size is 5, but your hand size is really 7, because you're discarding a card to draw 2 as your first action every turn. So that feels pretty good. Oh, it's 6, I guess. But either way, it's really good. I think that you can get consistency in his deck, but you're going to have to take a lot of card draw or play cards that have similar effects. And we'll talk about that here in a couple slides. You probably want to include some sort of basic package. A lot of his cards cost 2 or more. He's got Pip. He's got 5 cards that cost 2 or more, 5 more cards that cost 2 or more, so 10 cards that cost 2. So those double resources are going to be really useful. On top of that, they can be used for all 4 aspects. The power of cards can still be really good with him. Brian V has proved that in an awesome deck in the DB. Go check it out. I will put it in the link below because you need to play it. It's super fun. But those double resources are probably you definitely want to include this in your deck. On top of that, there's no reason to not run Sorcerer Supreme, unless Doctor Strange and Wanda are also at the table. Add 1 copy of Spiritual Meditation. They're just going to accelerate your deck and get you your good cards faster. You can imagine Adam Warlock with Sorcerer Supreme and 2 copies of Battle Mage. He starts with 6 cards in hand in hero form. He discards 1 and draws 2, so he jumps to 7, and he's just rocking and rolling and going crazy. Once you include those 5 cards, I hate having auto-includes, so I still wouldn't call them auto-includes, but I'd kind of call them auto-includes. That leaves you with 20 cards or less to do deck building if you're going to stick to the 40 card minimum, which I do still recommend. Even though you're burning your deck really fast, you want to get counters for Soul World. You want to know where all your cards are at any point in time, and having more cards in your deck makes it more difficult to manage that. But with 20 cards, that's only 5 cards per aspect, so it can be really hard to build a consistent deck. I've seen sort of 3 routes you can go with deck building for Adam Warlock, and there's a lot more, but these are the general decks I've seen. There's the, ooh, I have access to everything. I'm just going to take the best of everything, and it's going to be take all the best cards in my collection and throw them in a deck and see what happens. Usually works out pretty good because you just took all the best cards and put them together, so they're not going to perform poorly when they're put together. There's another type of thing where you can try to make a consistent smooth deck to like smooth out that randomness if I drew the wrong card at the wrong time. And we'll talk about a couple ways to do that. Card draw is obviously one of them, but you can also look for similar effects and include a lot of cards that have a similar effect so that you know when you need that effect, you're likely to draw into it because you have many copies that do slightly different things. You can also build a toolbox that can be called upon, so a lot of cards that draw and search and siphon your deck for specific types. You can imagine with access to all four aspects, you can build like 2 to 3 tools. Maybe you're going to have a bunch of minion handling things and a bunch of threat control things. So on any given turn, you can figure out a way to get to the thing you need and then use that tool effectively against the villain. And that's a really fun way to play decks. It's like a common deck in all sorts of CCGs, like Pokemon, Digimon, Magic have these like toolbox decks where they have a lot of 1-ofs or 2-ofs so that they can like go find the right tool when the time has come that they need it. And Adam Warlock is like the perfect hero for that. It's a really difficult way to play, but the payoff for it is tremendous. All right, so let's go through those 3 types. Take all the best things. We obviously know that allies are the best thing in the world. Who doesn't like having an adoring, cheering section of fans? And 2-cost allies and less are just the bee's knees. So why don't you just include all of them? There's like 2 to 3 per aspect at this point. Now maybe having like 20 allies in your deck is too much, but I'm honestly not sure if it is, right? In a 4-player game, if you get 2 Mystic Senses down, you can be playing 3 allies a turn and blocking for the entire table using your basic defense, and nobody has to worry about the villain phase. That's pretty bonkers. On top of that, all these allies have interplay abilities and other things that can happen. I'm not sure this is super fun. It's definitely rewarding, and it can win, right? Just cram all the good cards into a deck, and good things are bound to happen. But to me, it's not a very engaging way to deck build. Each time a new pack comes out, you're going to be able to evaluate, did a better card come out than these other cards? But it's not necessarily, I don't know, it's just not super entertaining to me. It's definitely a way you can build, and I think it can be super fun. So if it is the way you like to build, list your deck below, like your favorite one, because I would like to try it out. But these decks have not like floored me with their entertainment purposes. But I still think it's a viable way to build Adam Warlock. So I had to point it out. It's a thing you can do. Nobody else can really do it, because I don't think anybody else can cram 20 2 or less cost allies into their deck like Adam Warlock can. But there's things he can do that are so much more fun than that. So let's get on to those. Let's talk about making things consistent. What I mean by making things consistent is you want to choose like a role for your character. And we talked about this on our role player podcast episode like a year ago, but there's a bunch of different roles in Marvel Champions. You can be the threat handler, or the minion handler, or the damage dealer, or the person that defends and heals and protects everybody. And Adam Warlock can fit any of those roles, plus use his hero kit to sort of be a little bit flexible. So what you can do is, if you say, okay, I know I want to be the threat removal person. I've got my 2 Cosmic Awareness in Adam Warlock's kit, and I can discard Justice cards, but I can't, like, include a bunch of extra Justice cards. You can include a ton of cards from different aspects that normally wouldn't be able to go together. So you could include 4 Justice, Clear the Area, and Impede, along with Falcon, Into the Fray, and Chase them down. And now all of a sudden, you've got, like, 8 cards in your deck that remove threat. Well, that's what like a normal Justice deck does. When you're playing Justice, you don't want to throw in 25 cards that remove threat, because that's too much threat removal. So if you pick a role and you can get to like 10, maybe 12 cards that do that role within your deck, you can be a very consistent player at your role. And you can be very efficient at it because you can draw into all the right cards that do things in addition to removing threat. So things like Stealth Strike and Into the Fray can remove a minion and get rid of threats. So you can help your minion handler, but then also manage the threat, which is what your role is. So look for cards that have similar effects or similar themes. I think every aspect now has cards that remove threat. Every aspect has cards that deal with minions. Every aspect has cards that deal with dealing damage to the villain. So you can build a really concise deck around one role. And I think that can make your deck very consistent. So this is the way I recommend people start building with Adam Warlock. If you're not going to go the spam allies route, pick a role. Let's say it's threat removal. Maybe include these 6 cards, but look for other cards that remove threat and include like 10 to 12 of them, including your Cosmic Awareness. And then just put in some cards that you think might help you with utility, something to push damage, resources, Sorcerer Supreme, stuff like that. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a really nice, smooth deck that functions well within the Marvel Champions, like, metaverse or meta, right? You're going to be able to go to a game knowing this is your job and you can get it done. And it's going to feel a lot better than, if I just draw this one card, I drew this other card, but now I have to completely pivot my turn and I don't have the right card to match this, and that can happen a lot with Adam Warlock. So pick a role, stick to it, and see how it goes. If you get that to work, I recommend trying out one of these toolbox decks. So with these, what I like to do is pick 2 to 3 things that I'm going to do. I'd say start with 2. Maybe you want to be the threat removal and you want to be the minion handler. So you include a bunch of cards for both of those things. And don't forget, you have this awesome card called Quantum Magic, which means as cards are in your discard pile, you can pick out the best card you need on any given turn and put it into your hand. And it's not limited to hero cards or events or anything. So if you're the minion handler and you happen to draw into the half of your deck that is threat removal, but you have a Quantum Magic, well, you can go grab that minion handling card from your discard pile. This is a really fun way to play, and it's really effective in 2-player. If one person is going to be really focused and you have 2 other roles to fill, maybe like you're playing mutagen formula, so there's a lot of minions, but you also need to manage threat, and the other person just wants to take it to the villain's face. This is one really cool way to do it. I really like this style of deck. I'm going to put a link in the description to Brian V's Wild Tutor deck, and it uses power-ups and everything. I've played it a couple times, and it's an amazingly fun deck. And it's all about using card draw and using cards like Quantum Magic to get the right cards into your hand at the right time and fulfill multiple roles so that you can always get to like the solution to whatever the board state is at any point in time. It's a really hard way to play. Like, you have to be super forward thinking, what's in your deck, what's in your discard pile, what's in your hand, and what could happen if you draw. But once you've gotten that mastered, this is just like the next level of Marvel Champions gameplay. It's amazing. So, a toolbox deck. My suggestion for it to start out would be pick 2 roles and include like 5 cards that fill that spot in each role, maybe 6 cards, and then see how the deck plays against different scenarios. But you can go even wider than that, and it can be super fun. All right, so we're going to end with our 5 tips for Adam Warlock decks and gameplay. First thing, never give up your senses. Mystic Senses is by far the strongest card in Adam Warlock's kit. You cannot afford to pitch this card early to pay for something else. If you end the turn with 2 Mystic Senses in hand, you keep those cards. I never say this. You keep those cards and you play them next turn. Because this card is what makes Adam Warlock's deck function. I would even encourage you, if you draw and you don't draw something that's absolutely essential, like your staff or something like that, just pitch your entire hand and look for Mystic Senses and double resources. Because if you get one of those down turn 1, or 2 of those down turn 1, you may as well just pack up and say you won. Because this card is amazing. Card draw is what cures Adam Warlock's disease of inconsistency. And Mystic Senses is built into your kit. You need it. So never pitch this. Always bring something to protect it for caught off guard, whether that's like his Soul World or something else. You need to have something that protects this, and you need to have it on the board as soon as you can. If these are the bottom 2 cards in your deck, you are going to discard everything looking for them and then use Quantum Magic to swoop them back out, because you need them. So never give up your senses. Get them on the board. Gain that advantage. All right. Keep a healthy discard pile. Speaking of Quantum Magic, one of the resources Adam Warlock has is just like Make the Call, everybody's favorite leadership card. Every ally in your discard pile now is a potential resource for you, a potential thing you could play that could solve whatever problem is out there. Well, Adam Warlock's entire discard pile kind of acts like Make the Call. You pay 1 for Quantum Magic, put a card from your discard pile into your hand, and then you play that card and solve the problem. It kind of increases the cost of the card by 1, but that's a worthwhile tax for having like your entire discard pile at your disposal. So I like to get a lot of cards in my discard pile, and then I like to linger before I shuffle my deck until I know I have something that can like burn and get a bunch of cards in my discard pile again, so I have a big tool. So if you can like end the turn where you draw all the cards except 1 in your deck, then on the next turn, you can use Mystic Senses to draw that card, shuffling your deck. You can play a couple Karmic Blasts and put a bunch of things in your discard pile so your toolbox is sort of replenished. So keep a healthy discard pile. Be really wary of when you cycle your deck. You definitely want to cycle your deck to get counters on Soul World, but at the same time, you want to make sure you cycle your deck at the right time, that you end up with a bunch of tools there that you can use at the right moment. All right, so keep a healthy discard pile, tip number 2. Tip number 3, I said I hate auto-includes, and I still do. I still don't think there's a true auto include for any hero in this game, potentially, other than their 15 card signature kit. But when you're playing as Adam Warlock, there's some things you gotta consider. Sorcerer Supreme, get yourself to 6 hand size. Cards are so important to Adam Warlock, it's hard not to include this. Spiritual Meditation, again, getting the right cards into your hand at the right time is so important. And Spiritual Meditation can be played in alter ego form because you're mystic on both sides, so like so good. I didn't put it on here, but Deft Focus. I mean, it hits like 7 of the cards in his deck, and it's all the cards you want to play. So a cost reducer that costs 1, you're going to use it 5 times in the game, and it's going to pay itself off. And I would argue and strongly urge you to consider using Clobber and Impede. I mentioned them both on slides earlier, had them up there, but I didn't linger on it. These cards, I've always been kind of like meh on them with other heroes outside of Gamora and Miss Marvel, where they might play them 3 times at a turn, right? 2 resources for 3 damage ain't that great. But when it bounces back to your hand, it's like 3 damage for 1 resource. And Adam Warlock can turn that extra resource into more damage. So then this becomes 2 for 5 damage or 2 for 5 threat removal, and that is really strong. So include Clobber and Impede in your decks. Unfortunately, if you're doing a lot of card draw, like this might not be the first card you play, and then it's a bit of a bummer. But every time I get these cards, I almost always play them first, and they almost always pay like huge dividends for me. So I definitely recommend including Clobber and Impede in your deck. You're going to see that with Adam Warlock, they work really well. But also, I would strongly consider Sorcerer Supreme, Spiritual Meditation, Deft Focus, and maybe even the double resources as auto includes. And it kind of stinks that like I just gave you 7 cards and said you have to include these in your deck. Well, now you only have, way less choices, 18 choices of what to put in your deck. But these cards are going to pay huge dividends for you. So if you are struggling with what your last aggression or justice card should be, just throw in Clobber and Impede and see how strong they are with Adam Warlock. And I think you'll be surprised. All right. So this is a meaty topic, but you need to have some really like thought out deck building and piloting. Like you need to know everything that's going on and be a true Sorcerer Supreme to pilot an Adam Warlock deck well. Outside of the just puke allies on the board deck, there's a lot of neat things that Adam Warlock can do. So if you imagine Summoning Spell, this is a new card from Mad Titan Shadow. You can include 1 in your deck in leadership. You pay 2 to discard cards until you discard an ally and put that ally into play under your control. Well, if you have like 10 allies in your deck, you're never going to know what Summoning Spell is going to summon. But if your only allies are like Pip and Nick Fury, once you know where one of those is, you know who's left in your deck. So Summoning Spell becomes pay 2 to play Nick Fury. That's really good. And you probably don't want to have only 2 allies, but if you have like a small set of allies and you know who they are and you start tracking where each ally is, these 2 are in my discard, this one's in my hand, so the only one left in my deck is ally blank, Summoning Spell becomes insanely strong. So consider Summoning Spell. Same thing with Make the Call, right? When you know where those allies are, you know that those are resources for Make the Call. You've already got Quantum Magic that can do that too, but this just makes it 1 cheaper than Quantum Magic. So it's like a 3rd Quantum Magic, but only for allies, and you have to play it this turn. Still really good. So you have to know where different things are in your deck, which means you have to have really good knowledge of your deck. When you start saying, oh, what was my 5th ally? These cards lose a tremendous amount of power that you could use to your advantage. Other cards like that, I think Plan of Attack is going to be a really cool card with Adam Warlock. There's a lot of protection events now that gives you toughness, or protection attacks, sorry, that give you toughness, or they heal you like Momentum Shift and Hard Knocks and things like that. So Plan of Attack can turn into this cool summon attack that heals me card. And that's not something that exists like in Aggression. Like if you have a Moment of Triumph, maybe it does. But Plan of Attack mainly is like, go get me a thing that does damage. And it's still going to do that, but like with Concussive Blow and Stealth Strike and Justice, Plan of Attack can be like, go get me something that removes threat. And there's really cool plays you can do with that when you're flipping to Alter Ego form and stuff like that. So I think Plan of Attack is a really strong card because you need to know and build your deck such that this card becomes a get me the solution to what I need card, and then it becomes really neat. You can also just like load your deck with attacks. You can have like the 3 healing / toughness attacks from protection, and the ones from justice that remove threat, and the ones from aggression that deal damage. When you play Plan of Attack, you're going to hit like 6 attack events, and you'll get to pick the best one. Or you can build it to be super consistent, where you say, I know when I use Plan of Attack, I'm going to go get something that heals me. So Plan of Attack becomes a heal me card, which is great. Likewise for Gamora, After Gamora attacks or thwarts, discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard an event. So unfortunately, Adam Warlock has 7 events in his kit. So you can't make this super consistent, but you can imagine if in aggression, leadership, and protection you include all non-events, Gamora almost becomes, hey, go find me a Justice card, which is probably going to remove threat, or I can Battle Mage it for removing threat. And you can do the same thing with aggression, or with protection, or with leadership. You can make Gamora be, find me a Battle Mage card of the right type, or an Adam Warlock card, which is probably just as good. So you have to really think about what you're putting into your deck when you include these summoning and searching into your deck cards. Because they can be really, really important. And the same thing for cantripping, right? If you're going to Battle Mage a card, knowing you're going to draw something else, if you know what's in your deck, then you know what you have the chance to draw into. So you have to think about every single thing you do every time you do it, which is very taxing. So definitely have a plan going in, but you can do some tricky deck building with these searching cards to alleviate some of that mental stress. All right. The final thing you can do with Adam Warlock, which I can't wait to talk about, is you can combo. He's got so many crazy combos that even Spider-Woman couldn't do. There are 4 aspect combos that if you get these 4 cards in your hand, you just change the world. And it's amazing. So I'm going to show you 3 seeds, but just think about cards that normally you couldn't include together that would be amazing together. And some of them work with Spider-Woman too, if they only involve 2 aspects. But there's a lot that could involve more than 2. So one example here is you could play Angela, right? She's free. You can go search for a minion. Maybe the previous turn you'd play Beta Ray Bill from leadership. And after he attacks and defeats a minion, you remove threat from a scheme. And then you use Turn the Tide to deal damage to the villain. So all of a sudden you've brought a minion out, killed a minion, killed a side scheme, maybe drew from, Skilled Investigator or something, into Turn the Tide to hit the villain in the face. And all of a sudden you ended with 2 allies on the board, no side schemes and no minions. That's ridiculous. And there's so many different ways you can do it. You kind of have to include little clusters of cards, right? So you'd include a cluster of things that summon minions, like Looking for Trouble and Angela and stuff like that. And then you'd include a cluster of things that solve those minion problems and take advantage of it, like Beta Ray Bill and Relentless Assault and Stealth Strike. And then you include a cluster of things that take advantage of that, like Chase Them Down and things that respond to minions being defeated. Or if in this case, it's you summon a minion, you kill that minion to remove threat, you use that threat removal to defeat a side scheme, and you trigger more damage with Turn the Tide or card draw with Skilled Investigator or whatnot. So there's all these little pockets of things that can trigger off each other, but they're spread out amongst the aspects. But Adam Warlock can put them all in one succinct deck. So you could even do it this way, right? You could play Angela. You could then play Hard Knocks to defeat whatever minion comes out and give yourself a tough card. Shucks. Since you defeated a minion, you could use Chase Them Down to defeat a side scheme, and then you could draw a card for Skilled Investigator and use it for Battle Mage. That's bonkers. You just went through 3 aspects, ended by getting an ally out, getting rid of a side scheme, and giving yourself a tough card. There's nothing wrong with that. And you do need to have these 4 cards in your hand. So cards One Way or Another is going to be a real enabler for this, because you're going to draw into 3 cards, which helps you draw into the solution for whatever card you're bringing out. But really look into these wombo combos that go across multiple aspects, because they can be redonkulously fun. And every time new events come out, every time new aspect cards come out, Adam Warlock's going to be the first person I say, how does that change my wombo combo minion killer deck? I'm going to seek out minions, I'm going to kill them, and I'm going to take advantage of it. And it's just such a fun, bonkers way to play that I can't imagine going back. I am not normally an event-based kind of hero person, but Adam Warlock has changed that for me for the better. And I've seen a ton of crazy combos that, like this one here, Spider-Woman could do. But Adam Warlock can include the other 2 aspects and just make it even zanier. So to do this comboing thing and spread across aspects, again, you're going to fall into this trap of I got to draw the right cards at the right time. So you got to get your Mystic Senses down. You got to get a Mansion down and your Sorcerer Supreme. You got to get all the card draw you can, which is kind of silly because any character that can draw all the cards they can is going to be really good. Sorry, Hulk, maybe not you. But if Adam Warlock draws all the cards, he can really just ring the bells and do some crazy things. So think about some weird combos. Maybe put your favorite 3 aspect combo that you can think of in the comments below, because I would love to try it out in an Adam Warlock deck. So this is my hero primer / like initial thoughts on Adam Warlock after playing with him. I ordered Mad Titan Shadow from the UK, so I've had him for about a month and a half now. I've played him a ton. He is very, very fun. There should be some more gameplay videos coming out soon. But until then, let me know what you think of Adam. And next week on Technical Thursday, we will cover Spectrum in all her glory. And then we'll get to move on to villain cards from Mad Titan Shadow. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great Thursday.